Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment. And today I'm very happy to have with me from Honeymoon Suite, Derry Grehan. Welcome to the show, Derry.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm absolutely fantastic. We're here to talk today about the new album. It's just been released, Alive. And I understand this is a long time in the works. There's 10 new songs and a couple of re-records. So congratulations. I've listened to a couple of the previews. The songs are great. So what inspired this new album after all these years?
Well, it seems that every, 7 to 10 years, we kind of get the itch to say maybe we should put some new music out, or maybe we had a writing thing where a bunch of new ideas have come up and we figure maybe it's time to put a record out, or maybe a label approaches us. It's happened in different ways all the time, but it's always in the back of our minds to record again because that's what we do. And it's great to put new music out for our fans. So in this case, the last thing we put out was an EP called Hands Up, which was, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. So I'm always writing songs, and we've been so busy touring every summer and stuff to think about a record, but it's always in the back of my mind. I had a bunch of songs. Johnny had some ideas in the can, and what happened was in my travels, I'd hooked up with our producer, Mike Krompass. You were mentioning my daughter, Leah Marlene, earlier. I was working on some recordings, some new songs for her, just trying to get things going for her. And I'd approached Mike, who was living in Nashville at the time. And Leah and I were going down there a lot for writing and trying to get stuff happening. So I approached Mike to see if he would be interested in working with Leah. So we went down to his house down there. He had a studio in it. And that was my first introduction to him. So me and him and Leah did some writing and some recording for her, which came out really great. And then following that, Mike had mentioned that he started a new label of his own. And he's a huge Honeymoon Suite fan. So long story short, he was looking for new projects for his label. And somebody brought up the fact that we want to do an album. Would you be interested in making a record with us? And we played him some of the ideas, and he said, yeah, let's do it. So that's how that whole thing got started.
And I think that was a good move for him because I know you guys have long established loyal following. I mean, I posted on social media earlier that I was going to interview you, and a friend of mine from Red Deer, Alberta said, wow, I love having seen them for the 100th time live. And I was also there to document the Clifton Hill re-release in Niagara Falls back in September. And the crowd was like, they were just so into it. They sang along with everything. And I mean, Johnny could have just stood there, and the crowd had it. So, congratulations on all these years of solid work and a solid following to go with that.
We've got the best fans, man. And we're really lucky. We're one of the few bands in Canada that still gets that huge amount of airplay for all these singles and hit songs we've had in the past. Man, and that goes a long way. That carries us year after year, and it makes new fans. So thanks to radio and keeping it going, and on we go. So all the more reason to make new music.
And it's good music. I mean, the first album had several hits. You had New Girl Now, Burning in Love, Wave Babies, Stay in the Light.
Yeah, 4 hit singles, 4 videos. It just kept going. We get so lucky with that album. The time was just right. It was great.
Yeah, and a lot of bands don't survive through all the turmoil. I mean, 1983 is when you and Johnny connected. That's 40 years, over 40 years ago now. And I mean, There's so many bands out there now that we know the name, but there are no original members left.
I know.
Even April Wine, Miles Goodwin passed away, in December. And I mean, he handpicked his replacement, and Mark Parent has been doing a great job. So kudos there. But it's so refreshing to see a band like Honeymoon Suite where you and Johnny are the founding members, really. And you've stuck it out all this time, and you're still writing songs and you're still making new music. It's awesome to see that.
And we have Dave and Gary, too. We have almost entirely the original band. And Peter Nunn on keyboards, who's been with us over 20 years. So it's really great. My favorite bands it's not always possible, but when I see that very few bands are still around that have all original members, or most of them, I dig that. I love that. You look at U2 and Bon Jovi, Metallica, all these bands, there's not many. I really respect that when they can stay together that long and still put out great music,
Well,
as opposed to some bands, there's nobody original left. And I just look at that and I'm like, I don't know, it's just not the same.
it's a business, and I get that. And I spoke to a very prominent female lead singer. I don't want to mention the name because there's a whole lot of turmoil around the band that's using the name still. And at the time when I asked her how she felt, she said, well, if you were a successful business and you had to retire, wouldn't you want to see that business continue to be successful? So I get that. But for the fans, I mean, the Guess Who, come on,
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
you
I
know,
know. I'm not going to judge it. Everybody deserves to go out and make a living and, play music and make a living and keep the legacy alive. If the fans want to hear the songs, it's really the catalog that the people are coming to hear. And if it works for them, that's fine.
Yep, nobody can do it like the originals, really. And I mean,
No,
Johnny still got the voice, you still got the chops, and that's really important as far as I'm
he
concerned.
does. And that's another thing is that there's some bands or singers that probably shouldn't be out there anymore. Maybe they should retire. Nothing personal, but if you can't perform or it's not 100% or it's not good, I don't know. I don't want to see it. So we're very lucky that Johnny still sings amazing. His pitch is still great and inspires me to play. I'm a better guitar player now than I was 20 years ago. I don't know, man. I still get up and practice every day. It's like it never ends. So still inspired.
And we'll be right back after this. And having a top shelf band goes a long way too. I mean, as a musician myself, I never want to be the best player in the band. And it's a sign of solid work ethic that you guys are still doing it and you're still tight. There are a lot of legacy bands that just go out there and they're just phoning it in. And when I was there in Niagara Falls in September, I could see that you guys are still taking this very seriously. You're still having fun with it. And the new music is a reflection of that as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a band thing. There's not one of us that's a virtuoso, but it's a band thing. Together, the sound we make with the original guys, nobody else can do that but us. So thank you. And now to the new album. It's just so refreshing, all the feedback and stuff we're getting on it. This one really feels different. Our previous projects were good, but they didn't have the polish and the production that this one does. And kudos to Mike. He was number one, a fan of the band growing up, listening to us. He's a little bit younger, but he's also a wicked guitar player and a songwriter. So he's the whole bundle. He knows what to do with Honeymoon Suite. He knows our music. He wasn't trying to change. But what he did do is modernize the production. And if you listen to it now, we got big drums, big guitars, vocals are big, but it's still Honeymoon Suite. And it's not dated sounding. So that's what I love most about this new album. And I think most of the vibe that I'm getting from people, that's what they're feeling too.
I just can't help myself. This album is so good. Here's a short clip from Find What You're Looking For off the Honeymoon Suite Alive album. Enjoy.
And I know that you've been jacked about this album for some time because when I spoke to you briefly in Niagara Falls and I mentioned that I had the connection with Greg Campbell and Rock Paper Merchant 519 magazine and that we would likely talk about the new album, you said, let's do this. This album is happening. I could just see your enthusiasm then. And I know as an artist myself that there's a lot of work that goes into the crafting of the songs and you can't really talk too much about it before it's actually released. And you get this pent up energy that you just can't wait for the world to see your new baby. And I could sense that in you. And it's like the wait has been worth it. The music is awesome.
Well, the wait is, yeah, it's been a wait. It took a long time because COVID happened in the middle and Mike moves to England and builds a studio. So we had a number of setbacks there, but I was determined because I knew what we had was good and it kept getting better. So I was determined. I'm the sort of person like, even if I'm writing a song, if I start something, I simply have to finish it. I don't like loose ends. I don't like things that are partially done. Maybe it's my OCD. I don't know, but I knew this project was good and we were so far into it. I was on the phone and making things happen. And finally, here we are. So it feels great.
Now, as a songwriter, and you're the principal songwriter in Honeymoon Suite, do you look at it as a craft and a process? And do you have a process to write songs, or do you need to be inspired by life?
It's a bit of it comes from all those things. The process is I probably comes from just playing. I play every day, pick up the guitar, and I just start playing. Nothing particular, or I'll be practicing something or some new riffs, but just out of jamming and playing and not even thinking, riffs will pop up to my hands. And then a melody line will come into my head. And then I think, whoa, that's a chorus. So there we go. Start with that one. And that's kind of how a lot of songs will start. Or I might have a really great title that I've come up with and I can write around that.
Cool, cool. Yeah, and there's a lot that goes into crafting a good song. And I'm sure we both know musicians out there who are amazing guitarists, amazing keyboardists, whatever, amazing drummers, but they don't understand how to play for the song. And that's the difference between being a musician's band and being a band for the people, really. So I know that you're capable of shredding some serious shred,
Yeah.
but it doesn't necessarily fit into Love Changes Everything.
No, it doesn't mean anything. The song is king. You haven't got anything unless you got a great song and a great singer. And we've got a great singer, and I think we've got some good songs. We spend a lot of time rewriting and nitpicking over our songs. Keep in mind, this whole album was written by Mike and Johnny and ourselves. So it was three ways. So we had Johnny's ideas, my ideas, bring them into Mike. Mike would throw his 2 cents in. And I loved the co-write. It was a nice chemistry. So between the three of us, we kind of kept each other in checks and balances and threw new ideas in and refined the songs and made them the best they could be. So yeah, got to have the songs first. And
Absolutely.
Then if you get wicked production and playing on it, it just enhances it.
Yeah, and you mentioned production. I know that we all have good ideas, and some of us are luckier than others in putting those ideas together. But sometimes you need that critical third eye, if you will. You need somebody to light a fire under you and say, Derry, I know you could really play something that's going to fit this and whatever, or whatever the case may be. You've obviously worked with some good producers over the years, and this sounds like another one of those experiences.
And I do like when you have the right producer in the room, because he'll tell you, that objective ear. I need that, because sometimes I don't know if anything's any good. Sometimes I think I got a really good song and they're so about it. And then I'll play a throwaway riff and they're like, what's that? And that ends up being the great song. So that's why I like co-writing. It's bouncing things off. Sometimes you lose your objectivity when you're just so inside of your head, your song.
Absolutely. And you guys have had the right team inside and outside the band for a long time. So it's been working.
And we'll be right back after this.
Speaking of teams, now you mentioned your daughter briefly, and you and her were working together to get her somewhere on America's Got Talent. And that must have been quite the process. I mean, I was asked to audition for Canada's Got Talent, and my appointment was 1:00 at the Rogers Center. And I was beaming. I was, I'll be here for my 1:00 appointment. Little did I know there were like 20 or 30,000 people that also had a 1:00 appointment. So just to get through that must have been quite the process.
Well, first of all, she was on American Idol, not America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
However, when she was much younger, I mean, she's been playing since she was 8 years old, out, doing gigs. She did audition for America's Got Talent a couple of times. I remember we went to St. Louis and she got advanced to meet the producers, but never went farther than that. But that was kind of her first exposure to that cattle call in an arena with thousands of other contestants. But she did get a pass through a friend of ours where she didn't have to go through all that. Anyways, fast forward to a few years ago when she was in Nashville and she got they contacted her because it was during COVID. So they actually reached out to her. They found her on the internet and invited her to come and audition in Nashville, where she got the golden ticket. So it was really quite amazing process for her. So yeah, she got there and then out to Hollywood and on we went.
And that's so great to have you, her dad, as the biggest support. I know that for a lot of us, I can remember practicing with early bands in my grandmother's basement and my mom pounding on the floor with a broom. Can you turn those damn drums down? So we didn't all have that kind of support. So it's nice to see that you have that connection with your daughter in the music.
Well, yeah. And I know I didn't have a ton of support from my parents either when I was, a kid. I would always leave the house and go somewhere else to make noise. But with Leah, her mom and I, from day one, she did all this herself. She found her own talent when she had the desire and the talent. We didn't push her into it. She just found the love of it. And we only kind of encouraged her. And I did what I could to help her along.
You've done a good job. Absolutely. So as a guitar player, we all have challenges. And one of the biggest challenges for me has been to pick the right guitar. Like, I don't know if you can see behind me, I have a few guitars here. And I've got a custom built Strat and a custom built Tele because I could never buy one off the rack and be completely happy. Now you have an endorsement from Godin. And how did that happen? And what's that experience been like for you?
Well, I have Godin. I've kind of worked with them on and off over many years, but never a full endorsement like I have now, where they approached me and asked me if I wanted to do a signature guitar, which was amazing for me. I've always kind of wanted to do that with a guitar company. Again, Mike Krompass had a hand in this. It's a long story, but Mike knew the people at Godin, and Mike was a fan of my guitar with the yellow tire treads on it because he thought that was pretty iconic. And he mentioned to Godin, I'm working with Derry from Honeymoon Suite. Why don't you guys do a signature model on him? And lo and behold, they got a hold of me and we started the process. So we have a signature. I have my own signature, Derry Grehan TR1, it's called. And it's been out for a few years and it's doing really well. We did a limited run and sold quite well. So it's a really amazing compliment and I love the guitar.
Now, were you able to get hands-on with the actual design process and tell them certain specs like the radius of the neck and so on, that kind of thing, or what kind of pickups, or was it just, here's the kind of guitar I like and what can you do for me?
Oh, sure. It was a combination of, I used a Godin body and a Godin neck with my specs for the guts and everything else. Of course, I was hands-on from the beginning. And the first thing I did was my original guitar from the 80s that I played for years, the Mutt. It had a Godin neck on it, a Kramer body. That's the one that was on the Racing After Midnight album cover. I took that guitar to the factory to Godin so they could photograph it and measure it. And that's how we started the process. I said, I want these pickups, this bridge and everything else. And we started there. And they put a prototype together and sent it to me. And I went over it and gave them comments back. And they built another one and sent it. It was a few back and forths. It was a really cool process. Again, that took time too, because it was during COVID.
Right.
But eventually, after about probably 2 years, we got the final production model, which I have a couple of them, and they're beautiful.
Nice. Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Back to the new album, Alive. It's out on Frontiers and wherever you can get your good music. There are 2 singles, Alive and
Find What You're Looking For.
Yes. That's the new one that's just been released, right?
Yeah, actually, the new album, because it took so long, what we did was when we had some of the tracks finished, we decided to release a single like probably 2-3 years ago called Tell Me What You Want, because it was done, it was mixed. And Mike was like, why don't we whet their appetite and put a single out now? Because a lot of bands do that in place of albums. So we put Tell Me What You Want was the first single with the video. And then a couple, like last year, I think we put out Find What You're Looking For. And now with the release of the record, the latest song is actually the 3rd single called Alive, which is the title of the album, and the little video, which we shot in Niagara Falls. So we're 3 singles in technically.
Very cool. And from what I've heard, I do recommend that people go out and get the new Honeymoon Suite music. It's awesome. I don't know what else I can say. You guys have been successful all these years, and I know there's a lot of stuff that happens in between, but congratulations on your longevity and maintaining your solid fan base. And congratulations on the brand new album.
Thank you. Thank you. We're pretty proud, pretty happy with it. We can't wait to get out and probably going to play a new track or two in our show. And it blends in real well with all the other stuff. So we're excited to get out on the road this summer.
After the tour, do you already know what's next after that for you guys?
No, we just kind of take it year by year. We just go from one project to the next. Like you mentioned, Clifton Hill, which was a great album. We remixed that. That's been re-released, or it's going to be re-released. And that's really cool to do that. And then we've got like the new album that's out. Then we'll start our spring and summer tour, go from there. And after that, I don't know. I just want to go out and tour now. I want to go back to Europe. I want to play more in the US, and on we go.
We'll all look forward to all the new stuff happening. So the new album, Alive, is on Frontiers. The Clifton Hill, that's Rock Paper Merch, is that right?
Rock Paper Merch. And yes, the new album Alive is on Frontiers in Europe and the US, but it's going to be released under probably Music in Motion or our web store. It's going to have a different label. So for your Canadian listeners or viewers, they should buy the album, the Canadian version of it, which is, you mentioned Greg Campbell. We're working pretty closely with him because he's our web store. I think it's Music in Motion or Merch in Motion or something.
Yeah, the label is Music in Motion, and then there's Rock Paper Merch, and I think there's a Merch in Motion. He's a guy, he never sleeps, that guy.
Yeah, just go to that site and you'll find the new record. That's for the Canadian fans. That's where they should get it, because if they get the Frontiers version, they might have to get it sent over from Europe, and it'll be more expensive. But I don't care where you get it, just get it because it's good.
Should point out too, for vintage audiophiles, the new album is available on vinyl as well as CD.
Yeah, we're doing special vinyl, autographed vinyl, all that stuff is going to be available. Some really cool packages.
Awesome. Listen, Derry, I don't want to take up your whole day. I do want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. And until next time, cheers.
Yeah, no, happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. And hey, here's some news. We've just recently joined forces with 519 magazine, so you can check out my interviews there as well. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn, all rights reserved. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help us keep it going, why don't you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, cheers.